Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to be talking about my favourite jazz fusion drum performances on album, and I'm going to be going from sort of my 10th favourite to my first favourite, although I've got to be honest, this could be any order really, and since I've written the list I've come up with about 15 albums that I thought should be in there as well, but we're going to stick with these, so let's get on with it. Of course, this is just my opinion. It's very based upon the albums and performances that form me as a drummer, and I'm not including prog drummers, I'm not including rock drummers, and I'm not including jazz drummers. I will do that at another time. So let's kick off at number 10. I have Dennis Chambers on Blue Matter by John Scofield. Now, I have looked all the way through my record collection for an album that I can hold up at this point, but I can't find it. And I thought, well, I'm not going to change it, because for me, it's got to be in there. It's got to be in that list. If you're a drummer nowadays and you're playing anything jazz or jazz fusion-y, you really will be aware of the gospel chops drum sound. And that's a sound that's emerged on the internet. Drummers like Eric Moore have really pioneered a style which is very fat groove, sort of linear, very fast fills around the kit, very sort of hand twisty over and crossover type fills, lots of hi-hat work, very intricate. And this has become the real style of the internet if you're a drummer playing anything fusion-y. That drum style for me really has its roots in Dennis Chambers. And Dennis Chambers really premieres that sound on the album Blue Matter by John Scofield. And that was really, really influential for me. But he does so much more on that. There's so much more that Chambers does on that. And the way he integrates in with Gary Granger and Scofield, very, very funky. It doesn't fall into the pitfalls of 80s jazz fusion. I think at some point I'm going to have to do a video on 80s jazz fusion. I was listening to fusion in the 80s, and there were so many albums came out at that time, and you'd buy them, and it really sounded like the soundtrack to a sort of Coca-Cola advert. Really middle of the road rubbish, and you felt so disappointed that you'd spent 15 quid on this import album. And so I think it'd be really nice to look at the albums that I did like from the 80s, and there's a whole ton of them, and the Scofield albums are in there. Still Warm and Pickett's Live, Loud Jazz. I love all those albums. Blue Matter for the one is the one I heard first, and it's the one that really influenced me, and I think it's got some of the best tunes on there. But Pickett's Live is really good. So yeah, at number 10 I've got Dennis Chambers on Blue Matter. At number 9, another 80s album. See, I'm trying my best not to just stick to the 70s. Another 80s album, and it's Omar Hakim on Procession by Weather Report. I've talked about this album in my Weather Report video. The Weather Report 80s band with Omar and Victor Bailey, I think was a really incredible band, a really important 80s fusion band. And I think Omar Hakim was such an important drummer at that time. I was really influenced by him because he played with Sting live, and he was on Sting's first solo album. And Sting did a big favour for jazz musicians. In hiring them, it became sort of the norm in the 80s for people like Madonna or Lionel Richie to sort of pull in these jazz fusion players and really give them, a platform. And that was really apparent with Sting because he made a film with Omar Hakim in it, and we all saw how incredible he was. But if you really want to hear Omar in his full fusion mode, very early on, where he's really pioneering his way of playing, it would be on this album. There's a track on here called Molasses Run that I learned as a kid, and the way that he played syncopated bass drum and snare drum beats was very influential. So it's one of my favourite drum performances ever. Right, at number 8, I've got the incredible Alphonse Mooson on 11th House with Larry Coryell. I've also talked about this album on my Larry Coryell video, so you can have a look at that. Alphonse Mooson is such an incredible drummer. There's an album by McCoy Tyner called Sahara, and when I do my favourite straight jazz drumming performances, it will be there, probably number 2 or 3. Alphonse Mooson was a really incredible drummer, like a post-Elvin Jones out there drummer, equal to like Cobb and the rest of them. But if you want to hear him full fusion, mode, then this is the album, 11th House Level 1. Absolutely incredible album. Another drummer that doesn't get mentioned in the same breath as like a Cobb or a Steve Gadd would be Lenny White. I absolutely love Lenny White. I love his drum sound, I love the way he plays, his fills, the way he plays grooves. Again, Lenny can play absolutely everything. I've got him playing funk, I've got him playing Latin music, I've got him playing straight jazz. This is the album for me. If you want to hear him playing fusion, Romantic Warrior by Return to Forever. His drumming on all the Return to Forever albums is absolutely mind-blowing. But the albums on Polydor, I always felt weren't recorded quite as well as the albums on this album that he did with I think it's on CBS. When the band moved to CBS, the production values went up, and you suddenly hear Lenny White recorded properly, and it is absolutely mind-blowing, especially on Medieval Overture at the start. The fills around the toms and the speed and intensity he's playing, the sort of this really fast, funky beat. He's something else. And if you want to hear that, go and check this album out. Absolutely brilliant album. Right, I can't do a top 10 jazz fusion drummers without including Tony Williams, because Tony Williams is the daddy of modern drumming as far as I'm concerned. He's the guy that comes out first. He pioneers a way of playing that everyone then sort of latches onto. So at number 6, I need to include Tony. Now, I think Tony Williams is one of the great straight jazz, swinging jazz drummers that's ever lived. He might actually be my favourite. But what about fusion playing? I got to be honest, his album with Alan Holdsworth and Tony Williams' Lifetime, they could well be in there, but I decided to go with this one. And if you go over to the video I did with Pete Pardo at Sea of Tranquility, we've done a Stanley Clarke top 10, and this one came in at number 1 for both of us. This is just an incredible lineup: Stanley Clarke, Jan Hammer, Tony Williams, Bill Connors. And Tony's just playing off the chart on here, and it's full on fusion, bombastic drumming. This album was very influential to me on the way to play double pedal. I got a lot of double pedal ideas from this album and what he was doing. But of course, Tony has not got a double pedal or a double kick. He's doing it all with the one foot, which just shows you what a sort of player he was. This is an absolutely fantastic. Number 6, Stanley Clarke with Tony Williams. At number 5, I've now got a drummer who was hugely influential on me. I had a period where I was almost trying to clone myself into sounding like him in the early 90s, and that's a drummer called Terry Bozzio. Now, Terry Bozzio played with Frank Zappa. He then played in Missing Persons, making sort of new wave pop music. He's played art rock with like the guys with Japan, Mick Karn. He's played all sorts of different music. But Terry Bozzio for me is a bit like Bill Bruford. He's a sound innovator. You know Terry because of the way he phrases certain things and the way he phrases them dependent on the sound. He was very influential in me using sort of cymbals stacked together in industrial sounds and trying to change the snare drum and the bass drum, and also very influential in his use of ostinatos where he plays one rhythm and plays against it. He's played on all sorts of different albums, but there is one album where he's out and out fusion, and that's this one, Heavy Metal Bebop by the Brecker Brothers. This is just a hell of an album. It's my favourite Brecker Brothers album. It's live, it's in your face, and Terry Bozzio is somewhere between like a Steve Gadd funky fusion player and a heavy metal drummer, and he's playing so far out on this album. This has got some of the most greatest drumming ever made. All of it is incredible, but check out Some Skunk Funk. Some Skunk Funk is a famous Brecker Brothers tune, and everyone knows the studio version, but the version, the only one I care about is the one that Terry plays on here. Absolutely incredible album, because we're right into some of the greatest drum performances ever. At number 4, how can this be at number 4? It is. On any other day I would be saying this is the greatest drum performance on any album ever, and that's Vinnie Colaiuta on Secrets by Alan Holdsworth. He's just got the most virtuoso technique linked with a sort of like a cobra reaction time, linked with an ability to play polyrhythms and improvise them around the drums like nobody else. When you listen to Vinnie on Shut Up and Play Your Guitar, the way he plays off Zappa's guitar playing is absolutely incredible. He picks up stuff so quick. So put him with Alan Holdsworth, the greatest guitarist who's ever lived, and something happens. And it really happens on the first track on here, City Nights, which is like 3 minutes long. It's probably the most intense, out there, mad drumming that anybody's ever done, along with probably the most intense, mad, out there guitar playing that anybody's ever done. Absolutely incredible. If you're a drummer, you need to listen to this, Alan Holdsworth, Secrets. And that's at number 4. So, what have I got in to beat that? Well, at number 3, we have the mighty Steve Gadd on Chick Corea's Leprechaun, right? Steve Gadd is a very influential drummer to me. I probably learnt more actual licks and grooves of Steve Gadd than any other drummer. And Steve Gadd just thinks in a different way on drums. He's got a signature sound, he's got a groove that no one else has got. And so many people who love Gadd, it's because he sat there playing this really funky groove and it's so laid back and in the pocket and everything's perfect. But Gadd can be brutal, and he's brutal on this. Right, now this is a bonkers album from Chick Corea. It's a sort of conceptual album about fairies, right? It starts off with the Imp's Welcome, which is sort of loads of overdubbed keyboards. It's a very, very strange album. It's got vocals on it from Gail Moran, very twee vocals about fairies, right? So you wouldn't expect it to have some of the heaviest drumming ever recorded, but throughout it he plays absolutely beautifully. But at the end of side 1 there's a track called Night Sprite, and when I heard it, it just seemed inhuman what Gadd was doing on that. Absolutely incredible. And he sort of does everything that a drummer could do. He plays grooves, he plays unison stuff, he plays with the soloist, and there's one section where they're playing this very complex sort of run, all unison run, and then they're soloing. And as they solo, that run gets shorter and shorter. How they worked out how this worked, I don't know. And the way Gadd negotiates himself through is absolutely incredible. On side 2, there's a 13-minute track called The Leprechaun's Dream. Listen to how Gadd comps behind the soloists on that. It is just stunning. He's playing jazz improvised drums, but unlike any other drummer would do. The way Gadd plays jazz is so individual, and it makes you realise that you don't have to follow the standard line. This is the thing about really great drummers. They don't intimidate you. They shouldn't make you feel like, oh God, I can't do that. They should make you feel like, God, I can do what I can do, and whatever I want to do is the way I should do it. And drummers like Gadd and Vinnie and the drummers we're about to talk to, that's the way they make me feel. I don't feel any urge to copy them. The only way I want to copy them is by trying to be myself. All these drummers have got signature sounds themselves. So yeah, number 3, Chick Corea, The Leprechaun. Incredible album. At number 2, right, we now got down to my 2 sort of mentor drummers. When I started drumming in 1980, I was listening to Rainbow and Whitesnake, and I got the sticks and I was trying to play, and my mum said, there's a drummer on the telly tonight doing a talk about drums, and it was Billy Cobham, and he was on BBC 2, mainstream telly on the night, and he did a lecture. We had a couple of drummers, and he went through some stuff. I was aware right from day one that Billy Cobham was a drummer unlike normal rock drummers, that there was something special going on. Of course, I'd never heard any albums by him, because I wasn't listening to that type of music. I was into rock. But my dad went out and found a Billy Cobham album, and it was this album, Crosswinds. And this just blew me away. And there I was listening to my sort of Tigers of Pantang and Praying Mantis albums, and then I'd put this on and go, my God, this is another level. I knew it all the way through. Later I discovered the Mavish Orchestra and it all made sense. But for me, Cobham is still at his peak on this album. I think many would have expected me to go for Spectrum. Of course, I love Spectrum. I loved Total Eclipse and Shabazz and Life of Times. All of them I absolutely love. But this, for me, because it was so formative and I had it so early on, is the album. His drum sound is absolutely beautiful. The band is incredible. It's got Michael Brecker on saxophone, the greatest saxophone player of the last 40, 50 years or whatever. And it's got 2 drum solos on. It's got a drum solo called Storm, which is just a solo drum track where Billy Cobham sort of plays with a flanger, and he makes the sound of a storm passing over. It's just sublime drumming. And on Pleasant Pheasant, he does a drum solo over the form of the tune, and that's probably the greatest drumming over form ever. You know, he plays over a blues form and he does a solo. Absolutely incredible. This is the Cobb to get first, I'm afraid, not Spectrum. Go and get this one, it's absolutely incredible. So, at number 1, I have, and when I really think about it, this guy comes up over and over again as being my favourite drummer, the way he plays, the way he sounds, and he's the whole vibe of what he does. And it's Narada Michael Walden, and it is, if I can get it the right way round, Mavish Yorkshire Visions, The Emerald Beyond. That's my favourite album at number 1. Narada Michael Walden is just my favourite drummer, I think. I love him on Wired, I love him on his solo albums, I love him on so many albums, but on Visions of the Emerald Beyond, his drum sounds absolutely incredible. That is my favourite album because it does everything. It's got like mad fusion stuff, soloing, it's got all sorts of stuff. So that's my favourite album. Thanks for listening. This has been my top 10 drummers, you know, jazz fusion drum performances on album. Yeah, thanks for listening. You know, please put the guys that you like in the comments. You know, I'm going to start putting in all the albums that I missed out that I should have put in, I'm sure. You put yours in, and please like and subscribe for the video. Thank you very much.